Title: Taming My Husband, written by Avanah. Chapter 1: Meet Up. Stop it, Mama. I've already heard this for the 9th time. For God's sake. BK couldn't help but raise his voice after hearing what his mom said. He stood up from his seat and wiped his mouth with a tissue. He hadn't even finished his meal yet, but he was already stopping. BK, he heard his father yell, along with the sound of a spoon and fork dropping. His father absolutely hated it when someone left the table without finishing their meal.
What?
I hear that every single day. Can I decide for myself when I want to get married? I'm only 26. He looked at his mother, who seemed saddened. Son, we're getting older. Of course, we want to see our grandchildren from you, his mother said gently. Sadness was visible on her face. He couldn't hold a grudge against her. I told you, Ma, I have a girlfriend. She's just not ready to meet you yet. I need you to be patient with me. Please. He hoped they would believe him, especially his mother. His happiness depended on it. I don't believe you, BK, his mother said seriously. Do you want me to find a wife for you myself? I'm warning you. There was a hint of threat in her tone. Oh no. He quickly kissed his mom on the head before leaving the table. It was a sign of respect, even when he was frustrated. She called him again, but he didn't look back. He spent the next few moments sulking in his room. Remembering his friend Kevin, who loved dating apps, he gave him a call. It looked like he'd have to introduce a future wife to his mother soon, in case she would disapprove of whoever she might find. Kevin quickly texted him back, saying he made him an account on the Matchio app, a dating app. Kevin used the name BK and sent him all the other details he'd set up. He wasn't familiar with that app, so he was a bit lost at first. He'd added and messaged a few people, but he didn't like the responses he got when they exchanged messages. He stopped scrolling when he saw a full view of a picture on his timeline. The girl was cute with long, curly hair. She had rosy cheeks and fair skin. He smiled when he read her bio. It said she was looking for a friend, someone who wouldn't leave her in times of trouble. He figured out what she probably wanted, just like others. It was all about money, but at least she was upfront about her intentions, and he appreciated that honesty. They might just get along. He quickly pressed the add button. She accepted right away, and he smiled. He sent her a message saying he wanted to be friends. She replied promptly, and that's how it all started. Soon, they reached a point where they decided to meet in person to get to know each other better. She was also in Metro Manila, so they set up a date immediately. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop. After 4 days of chatting on the app, she seemed nice. He hoped she'd be open to his plans when he told her later. Yes, the meeting was set for today. He was nervous because he was unsure if she was the same person in her pictures or if he was the same gender as him. But he hoped things would go well. His mom had mentioned marriage to him again that morning. Gray shirt, black jacket, and black pants, that was what he wore. A casual mix and match with fashion shoes for a masculine look. He hoped she'd like it. Extra points for effort. He really needed this, so he had to put on a good act. But if she could understand his situation, even better. That would solve his problem. I have a date with Daphne, Ma, he informed his mother, who was watering the plants. Who's Daphne? My girlfriend. She paused and studied his face. She was good at reading people. Okay, is this serious? Yes, Ma. She's the girlfriend I told you about. I'll believe you, baby. Introduce her to me soon. I'm getting impatient. She smiled at him before returning to her plants. Bye, Ma. Bye, she replied without looking at him, just waving her left hand. They had agreed to meet at 10 o'clock, but he left early to stop by the barber shop. It had been a month since his last haircut. He left the mall at 9:45. The Moon Cup Cafe, owned by a friend of his, was nearby. He glanced at his inbox when he received a text from Daphne. He had given her his number just in case he wasn't online. She mentioned she was close to their meeting place. He couldn't help but feel nervous. He'd sent her his real picture just yesterday, and she'd sent hers too. Hopefully, she was real as well. If not, he'd return to square one in his search for a woman. Daphne held her chest, feeling nervous about this date. It was her first time meeting a stranger. If it weren't for the money, she would never go on this date.
Scandinavia, ieri come?
She whispered to herself. If it weren't for her dream of going to Scandinavia, she wouldn't have registered on that dating app. It was a desperate move. They weren't born rich, so this was her way to get there and find someone she had long been wanting to see. She almost jumped when her phone suddenly rang. Hey, girl, make sure you come back safe and sound, okay? Her friend Amelie blurted. She had already told her friend that she was meeting a guy she had just met on the Match app, a dating app for people looking to get married. Not everyone finds a spouse, as some end up breaking up without reaching marriage. It was trending, so she signed up. Yes, ma'am, she joked back. Amelie had sent her a taser for self-defense, just in case. She told her to use it if the guy did anything bad, and it was safely in her bag. I really don't like your idea, you know. Just make sure to call, all right? Amelie's voice was still filled with concern. Yes, ma'am. She smiled before ending the call. She was already in front of the cafe. Their table was supposed to be reserved under the name BK. She took a few deep breaths before approaching the guard. She asked him where she could inquire about reservations, and he pointed to a tall man, so she went over to him. Hi, we have a reservation under BK's name. Where might?
Yes.
There is one. You're Daphne, right? He said, making her raise her brows. She didn't know how he knew her, but she nodded. This way, he said, guiding her to a table in the far corner. It looked like a VIP spot. Thank you, she said as he pulled out her chair. She glanced around. There were many customers, and the place seemed safe. She took out her phone and sent BK a message, letting him know she was already at the cafe. She was about to put her phone down when someone sat across from her. She couldn't help but stare in surprise when she saw who it was. It was BK. He was even more handsome in person. One reason she had agreed to meet was because of his appearance. Hi. He greeted her with a smile. Hello, she stammered slightly. BK. He extended his hand, and she accepted it. Daphne. She suddenly felt awkward when he looked at her intensely. He leaned back in his chair, keeping his gaze on her. Luckily, their order arrived quickly, and he focused his attention on the food. He took a sip of his coffee before speaking. So, everything you said in the chat was true? Like your name? He asked. She nodded. What about you? She asked back. Almost. I wanted to save some things to tell you in person. You know what the app is for, right? He asked seriously.
So she was right.
He was genuinely looking for a wife on the app. Is that why you joined him? Why? She meant match ya. Yes, and I'm fucking serious, Daph, he said with a tone of sincerity. Why would you want to get married so soon? Some guys want to enjoy their single life a bit longer. But you're ending it so quickly, she commented. He just laughed at what she said. If you were my wife, would you just let me do whatever I wanted? He said instead. She started to think about it, but couldn't help but really consider it. He seemed to be hinting at something. If I were your wife, would you let me do whatever I wanted? Would you give me everything I want? She asked in quick succession. Financially? Don't worry, I can provide you with whatever you need. He understood what she was getting at. With money, she'd have a chance to leave the country and go to Scandinavia. She also figured out what he wanted. He must have a deep reason for wanting to get married early. Whatever it was, she would accept it wholeheartedly if it meant fulfilling her dream trip. And if they got along, she was sure it would be a happy arrangement. Really? Just tell me, Daph. I don't care about your reason, but I do have some conditions. Interested? I'm sure we'll both like the terms I'll lay out. She looked at him intently. He was serious. Actually, she had already seen his profile. He was genuinely wealthy. But she suddenly froze when she remembered her mother. She hoped her mom wouldn't be angry with her decision if it ever came to that. This was for her family, to finally realize her dream family, herself, her mom, and her father, who was in Scandinavia. Okay, she replied after a moment.